Today I'm going to discuss about parasites. Parasites of or in the livestock, poultry, and ruminants or rumen animals. But first, let us discuss about what is parasite. A parasite is an organism that lives on or in a host organism and gets its food from or at the expense of its host. Ang parasite ay ito daw po yung mga living organism din or mga buhay na organismo na naninirahan din sa ibang mga organism. At kinukuha yung mga pagkain nito mula sa mga tinitake or sa mga expense ng host nito. In us humans, we also have parasites living in our body or inside of us. At ang tatlong main classes of parasites na yon na nagkukos ng diseases sa atin ay ang protozoa, helminths, at ectoparasites. Protozoa. Protozoa is a microscopic, one-celled organisms that can be free-living or parasitic in nature. They are also able to multiply in humans, na nagko-contribute para sila makasurvive and also permits serious infections to develop from just a single organism. Transmission of protozoa that live in a human's intestine to another human typically occurs through a fecal-oral route. Halimbawa po nito ay yung contaminated water or food or person-to-person contact. It also lives in the blood or tissue of humans and are transmitted to other humans by an arthropod vector. Halimbawa po nito ay yung kagat ng lamok or sandfly. Sa pamamagitan po ng lamok na kumagat doon sa isang organism na mayroong protozoa ay naipapasa yung parasite na yon sa ibang organism, katulad na lang sa ating mga tao. The protozoa that are infectious to humans can be classified into 4 groups based on their mode of movement. And those are the Sarcodina, Mastigophora, Celiophora, and Sporozoa. At ito po ang isang halimbawa ng protozoa parasite. Ang tawag po dito ay Entamoeba histolytica at para makita siya ay kailangan po natin gumamit ng microscope. Helminths. It is derived from the Greek word for worms. It is large, multicellular organisms that are generally visible to the naked eye in their adult stage. And kagaya po ng protozoa, it can also be either free-living or parasitic in nature. And in their adult form, it cannot multiply in humans. There are 3 main groups of helminths, and those are the flatworms or platyhelminths, thorny-headed worms or acanthocephalines, and roundworms or nematodes. And this is an example of a helminth parasite. It is an adult Ascaris lumbriocoides worm, which can range from 15 to 35 centimeters. Next is the ectoparasites. Although the term ectoparasites can broadly include blood-sucking arthropods such as mosquitoes, this term is generally used more narrowly to refer to organisms such as ticks, fleas, lice, and mites that attach or burrow into the skin and remain there for relatively long periods of time. Kabilang po sa mga parasites na ito ay yung blood-sucking arthropods. Arthropods kagaya po ng mosquito. At tumutukoy din daw po ito dun sa mga organisms na nakadikit or naninirahan sa ating mga balat or sa iba pang organism. Ang halimbawa po nito ay ito nga pong louse. This is an adult louse and its actual size is as big as a sesame seed. Hindi lamang mga tao ang mayroong parasites, kundi maging yung mga alaga nating mga hayop. At sa mga hayop ay mayroong 2 klase ng parasites, the external and internal parasites. At yun naman po yung tatalakayin natin kung anong mga parasites ang mayroon sila. Una na po dito ay yung mga parasites na matatagpuan sa mga poultry. External and internal parasites of chickens. The external parasites of chickens are the red mite or Derma nisus gallinae, 1 mm long, red in color when fed, northern fowl mite or Ornithonisus silvarum, common chicken louse, Menopun gallinae, scaly leg mite or Nemidocoptes mutans, and the pluming mite or Nemidocoptes gallinae. Red mite or Dermanisus gallinae. This tiny bloodsucker causes anemia in hens and can pass disease on from hen to hen. It is nocturnal and sucks the blood of the hens at night, making it comparatively easy to control. Red mite can also live for 6 months without feeding and are then gray and very hungry. Sa umaga, ang mga red mites na ito ay nakatira sa kubo at sinisip-sip nila yung dugo ng manok na nagiging dahilan para magkaroon ng anemia or ng debility yung manok or kadalasan din ay or minsan ay mamatay. Ito po ang itsura ng red mite or Dermanisus gallinae. Parehas po sila ng northern fall mite at ang actual size po nito ay 1 millimeter long. At ito po yung itsura ng red mites na yon na tuwing umaga. Dito nyo naman po na pulang-pula dahil tuwing umaga nga po ay sinisip-sip nila yung dugo ng mga manok. Yan yung itsura nila kapag sila ay nakakain na or nakasipsip na ng dugo. Next is the northern fall mite or Ornithonisus silvarum. Similar in size and color to red mite, but it spends its entire life cycle on the bird, quickly causing anemia and death. Passed from hen to hen, not as often carried by wild birds as red mite, and the most frequently exhibited birds are at the greatest risk. Parehas sila ng red mite, pero itong northern fall mite ay mas matagal na nananalagi doon sa manok. Kaya, mas mabilis itong na magkaroon ng anemia at mamatay. Common chicken louse or Menopon gallinae. This louse is flat, yellow, fast-moving, about 2 millimeters long, usually seen around the vent or under the wings, but they move quickly out of the light as feathers are parted. This also has its entire life cycle on the bird and is host-specific. It is not life-threatening, unlike the previous mites, but it is an irritant and a heavy infestation can affect the performance of the birds when mating. Compare po dun sa naunang dalawang mites, ay ito po ay mas mabilis mawala or maalis at hindi siya ganoon nakakatakot or nakakamatay, unlike do sa dalawang naunang mites. At ito po yung itsura ng Menopon gallinae or yung common louse na makikita din po natin sa mga manok. Scaly leg mite or Nemidocoptes mutans. It causes intense irritation by burrowing under the scales of the leg, producing at first a whitish film and then mounds of white or pale yellow debris firmly attached to the leg. Itong scaly leg mite naman po ay makikita dun sa paa or sa binti or sa leg nga po nung manok. At ito po yung itsura niya. Kung mapapansin po natin, yung top leg nung manok ay po yung normal leg niya. At yung bottom leg naman po ay ito po yung mayroong scaly leg. Kung mapapansin po natin ay yung paa, yung leg po ng manok ay yung paa po ng manok ay iba. Ganito po yung itsura kapag yung manok natin, yung alaga nating manok ay mayroong scaly leg. Ganyan po nagiging itsura ng kanyang leg. Next is the depluming mite or Nemidocoptes gallinae. This may occasionally cause feather loss around the head and neck, but feather pulling is also a cause of feather loss in this area. Louse powder is not effective against these mites. Use DM on the bird. Ang depluming mite naman daw po na ito ay nagkukos ng paglalagas nung pakpak nung sa ulo at sa leeg nung manok. Dumako naman po tayo sa internal parasites ng poultry or ng mga manok. Some of the internal parasites are the gapeworm. It lives in the trachea of a bird, and when eggs are laid, they are coughed up and excreted to infect the next chicken. The symptoms are sneaking or gasping with throat extended. Capillaria. These tiny worms, also known as hairworm, live in the intestine. They quickly cause ill thrift and can be fatal if not treated. Trichostrongylus. These live in the intestine and cause severe weight loss. Tapeworm. These live in the intestine and cause severe weight loss and can be fatal. Gizzard worm. These live in the gizzard and can be fatal in young stock. This is the intestine of the chicken impacted with ascarids. Ganyan po ang kanyang itsura. Kung mapapansin po natin ay yung intestine ng manok ay puno ng mga bulate. Ang tawag po dyan ay ascarids. At ito po yung itsura ng mga worms na yon sa microscope. Ito po ay yung itlog ng mga worms na yon. Yung letter A po ay yung gizzard worm. Letter B, the triangostrongyle. C ay yung heterachis. D, ascarid. E, gapeworm. And yung F po ay yung capillaria. Ito pa po ang ibang halimbawa. Yung nasa large dish po ay yung ascarid. Top left ay yun po yung heterachis. At yung top right ay yung capillaria. The other internal parasites of the chicken are the Histomonas, which is a protozoa, a single-celled, free-living organism, affecting the liver in turkeys, pheasants, quail, peacocks, and guinea fowl, manifesting with bright yellow diarrhea. The disease is also known as blackhead. Next is the hexamitosis. Hexameta is a protozoa normally found in the gut, but it can cause diarrhea and unthriftiness in chickens, turkey, and pheasants' poults. Trichomonosis. Trichomonosis, another protozoa, causes an oral canker in hens, turkey, and pheasants. A white to pale yellow cheesy substance appears in the mouth and throat. Ako naman po tayo sa ruminants or rumen animals, kagaya po ng baka. Common cattle parasite. Common important internal parasites of cattle are hairworms, lungworms, liver flukes, and coccidia. Common external parasites include horn flies, lice, and grubs. So, ang mga baka ay mayroon din pong mga external and internal parasites. Some of those internal parasites are the hairworms. The gastrointestinal tract of cattle is often infected with hairworms, also called stomach worms and intestinal worms. And these worms are transmitted when infected cattle pass eggs in manure onto the ground. Eggs hatch in the manure. Rain washes the larvae from the manure, and cattle swallow larvae on wet grass in moderate temperatures. So, ang mga hairworms na po na ito ay makikita doon sa tiyan or doon sa bituka ng baka. At ito po yung itsura ng intestine ng baka na mayroong hairworms. Next is the lungworms. Lungworms causes a lung disease in cattle with clinical signs similar to those caused by viruses, bacteria, and allergies. Transmission and control are the same as for hairworms. Lungworms disease occurs in previously unexposed cattle as in calves or moved cattle. So, ang mga lungworms na po nito ay nagkukos ng lung disease sa mga baka. At ang transmission po nito o yung pagkontrol ay kagaya din po dun sa hairworms. At ito po ang itsura ng lungworms na makikita sa baka. Liver flukes. Cattle living in wet areas with alkaline soils may develop liver flukes infections. Yung mga cattle daw po na naninirahan sa mga basang lugar na mayroong alkaline soil ay maaring makapag-develop or magkaroon ng liver fluke infections. And those liver flukes are transmitted when infected cattle, deer, and rabbits pass eggs in manure and drop the manure and water. Eggs hatch in water and larvae develop in snails, and cattle swallow cysts on grass or hay. And this is the liver flukes looks like. Coccidia cause an intestinal disease of young cattle, usually 3 weeks to 6 months old, but can affect cattle up to 2 years old. They are transmitted when infected cattle pass cyst in manure onto the ground. Rain washes the cyst from the manure. The cysts develop under moist and moderate temperature conditions, and cattle swallow cyst on the moist ground. At ito pong itsura ng coccidia na yon sa microscope. Yan po yung itlog niya. External parasites. Some of the external parasites po ay ang horn flies. It reproduces in fresh cattle manure from early spring to late fall. Populations peak in late spring and again in late summer or early fall. Hot, dry conditions may naturally reduce hornfly numbers during midsummer. And hornflies suck blood, irritate and annoy, reduce weight gains, and cause weight losses. Ang hornflies na po na ito ay sumisip-sip ng dugo doon sa baka at nagkukos para mabawasan po yung timbang ng baka. At ito po yung itsura ng hornflies. Lice. Biting lice and blood-sucking lice are transmitted between cattle by contact, especially in the fall, winter, and spring when egg production increases in cool weather. Lice cause a condition called lousy, an itching skin disease with possible anemia. Clinical signs are dry, scaly skin, hair loss, and itching exhibited by biting, rubbing, and scratching. Lice bites and allergies to lice cause itching. Ang mga lice na po na ito ay sumisip-sip din ng dugo at naipapasa sa ibang bakat sa baka. Lalo na daw po kapag tagtuyot, taglagas rather, taglamig or tagsibol. At ang signs daw po kapag mayroong lice, yung baka ay yung panunuyot ng kanyang balat, paglalagas ng buhok at pangangati. Dahil sa pagkagat or yung pagkamot po nung lice. At ito po itsura nung biting lice na yon sa baka. Last is the grubs. Cattle grubs or warbles or wolves are larvae of hill flies which lay eggs on hair on the lower legs of cattle in late winter and spring. Grubs appear in the backs of cattle in winter. The migratory damage by the grubs in cattle causes weight losses and reduces weight gains and milk production. Ang mga cattle grubs daw po na ito ay nangingitlog dun sa buhok sa binti ng baka tuwing taglamig or tagsibol. Or maaari din po siyang makita sa likurang bahagi sa likod ng baka tuwing taglamig. At ito po ay nagkukos din ng pagbaba ng timbang ng baka at yung milk production niya. Nagkukos din ng pagbaba ng milk production. At ito po ang itsura ng cattle grub. Livestock animals also have parasites, kagaya po ng baboy. Internal and external parasites of swine. Ito po ang ilan sa mga internal parasites ng mga swine. Gastrointestinal roundworms or nematodes, respiratory roundworms or nematodes, roundworms or nematodes in the skin or in the heart and other organs, flukes or trematodes, flatworms, and tapeworms or cestodes. At ito po yung mga itsura nila. Sa left side po, ayan po yung intestinal roundworms or nematodes at sa right side naman po ay yan po yung itsura ng tapeworms or cestodes. Some of the external parasites of the swine are the biting insects or hematophagus and others. And these parasites suck blood. The non-biting insects which do not suck blood. Myiasis, the insect larvae are parasitic, not the adults, and the ticks which suck blood, and mites that do not suck blood. And this is an example of a tick which sucks blood o sumisip-sip ng dugo.